Taking a look at the box score out in Buffalo. All is well. 32-6. Not final, but we have reached the 2-minute mark in a slow progressing game. But plenty of Buffalo fans looking to exercise some of those frustrations while you hang 32 on a stout defense. Answers some questions. Josh Allen, 20 of 32, 275, and 3 touchdowns, and always an interception to keep you honest. Honesty, the only policy when our guy Ryan Wilson is around. Be honest, Ryan. Is this the type of win that quells concerns? It's obviously the result you're looking for, but the route there, enough to make some of those Buffalo murmurs settle?
No, I think so, because for whatever reason, the Jets have been Josh Allen's bugaboo. We saw that back in week 1 when they somehow found a way to lose that game after Aaron Rodgers went out 4 plays into his season. They did it with Zach Wilson at the time. Zach Wilson, fast forward to week 11, Zach Wilson has subsequently been benched because he has played so poorly and they were unable to move the ball at all. On the other side, the offense looked a little better. It felt like Josh Allen was making an effort to get the ball out on time. Historically, we know that he likes to hold the ball, take hits, and sometimes win with his legs, and sometimes to the detriment of that offense, and in some cases, the offensive coordinator's job. And Ken Dorsey, he was fired earlier this week. But I wouldn't call it all systems go, but it feels like a step in the right direction. They still suffer some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see how that sorts itself out. But I think one of the things you can feel good about, and the Bengals are done. I don't feel great about Joe Burrow's injury, but in terms of the playoff positioning there, and also the team that's currently on the inside of the playoff bubble in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Bills are a much better team than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh appears to be going in the wrong direction. If Buffalo can just maintain and eke out the wins they're supposed to, they'll have a chance. The only issue, of course, their schedule is incredibly difficult down the stretch, so they're going to have to build on this. Josh Allen is going to have to do what he does at the highest level and avoid those turnovers that we talk about every single week.
I mean, looking to launch, maybe they found 1 key, they turned it, but maybe 3 more keys and a button push needed for the Buffalo Bills if they're going to realize what they really want to. It's interesting how a few days can change a narrative, especially for a team and a quarterback as talented as Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Other side of this one, we roll in credits on the Jets after this. I mean, we see 3 quarters of Zach Wilson. I don't know if it's a mercy pull or they're moving towards Tim Boyle as a team right now, but the limitations are well outlined right now for New York.
Yeah, and I joked to you earlier that the writing was on the wall for Zach Wilson when he saw him run to the sideline, and head coach Robert Saleh,
tackled by the head coach,
accidentally tackled him to the ground, and then a few plays later he was out of the game. I think the reality is that Zach Wilson has not been playing well, and that's no grand revelation to anyone. But here's what I go back to, Joe. When Aaron Rodgers went down, there was a lot of consternation, and for obvious reasons. But remember, there were talking points for about a month afterwards. Hey, should we trade for Kirk Cousins? And every week, Robert Saleh would say, no, Zach is our guy. Well, you can see the frustration in Garrett Wilson's face week in and week out. There is no one else to throw the football to. All of Aaron Rodgers' friends at the wide receiver position typically are in wheelchairs, it feels like, because of their advanced age. They are not helping in the pass game. And you wonder if Robert Saleh had a time machine, if he could go back and make that trade for Kirk Cousins, or at least inquire about that trade. Or here's an idea, knowing what we know, you go out and get Josh Dobbs and you're probably headed to the Super Bowl. But I do think that the Zach Wilson experiment is mercifully over, and not just for this season, but probably going forward, because Aaron Rodgers is obviously expected back. But I bet there is some regret. And the things that did not happen, that could have happened after week 1.
Back to the Bills and maybe tying it towards what we saw or did not see out of Zach Wilson. We just saw Zach Wilson and Josh Allen share an embrace at midfield. It looked like Allen had some words of encouragement for Zach Wilson. Now, different points in their career, different expectation, clearly different talents when we're talking about those quarterbacks. But the ability to withstand the conversation, it seems like something that Josh Allen is quite adept at. How did you grade out, how do you assess his play in this game on the tail end of a lot of noise surrounding his performances?
I think Josh Allen is as good as he wants to be, and you do wonder about the noise, right? And that's the concern, because whether you want to or not, you're going to hear it, especially when you're someone in your mid-20s and you spend a lot of time on your phone. You're hearing things that perhaps you don't want to about your job performance. Ken Dorsey's out. Joe Brady is in, who was a former OC at Carolina and obviously made his name when he was at LSU with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that team that was so explosive winning the national title. So baby steps here, and that's all you can do. And again, we joke about the interceptions week in and week out with Josh Allen, but you have to limit the mistakes when the game matters most. He threw a jump ball at the end of the half that didn't really matter in terms of that turnover, but we saw plenty earlier this week that got Ken Dorsey fired, and those are the things you have to limit. It felt like he was actively trying to, much the same way after the week Week 1 performance where he had all the turnovers and the Jets lost, it felt like he was trying to do the right thing. So keep doing those things. Hopefully the defense can hang in there, and you should be right in the mix. But again, you still have to win some more football games against an incredibly tough schedule to even get back into the playoff bubble, if you will.
Now, some of the more constructive conversations in this past week about Josh Allen was talking about getting him more involved in the running game. Only 5 attempts for 15 yards in this one, but you brought up Joe Brady. Did you see differences in the play calling stuff they were trying to get to, concepts? Was there a big change in what you saw, or was it just change itself sparked a little bit something different?
I think it was more change itself, because at this point in the process, 11 weeks into the season, you're not going to throw out the playbook and start over fresh. You're just building on the concepts that you've been going over since May. And I think you can tweak the personnel, some of the formations, who's the number one on a certain route. Last week, oddly enough, the numbers, and we sort of talked about the expected points added, which can be twisted to say what you wanted to say at times. But there were times last week in the routes that were run where Stephon Diggs wasn't the number one, and he should have been the number one. Those are things you can tweak pretty easily, and I think that will be something to keep an eye on going forward, because you want Steph Diggs getting the ball. That seems to be a pretty easy change to make, and something that Steph Diggs would probably be all on board for, because you don't want him being out on this offense late in the season because he's not getting the looks that he thinks he deserves. And those are the tweaks you can make. But I think overall, to your larger point, it was change for change's sake. Let's jumpstart this. Did it feel like a panic move at the time? Absolutely. But you get the win against the Jets, a team that Josh Allen struggles against. Now you go forward and try to get that next win.
And we can stamp that one final 32-6 Buffalo with the win. And we will get you out to Buffalo in just a moment, where Tony Romo is standing by. He will offer his thoughts on the tail end of this matchup, Ryan. I think we've explored all we can with the New York Jets. I mean, I think the New York Jets have explored all they can with the New York Jets. I think Jets fans are all finished with exploration, but it does become the question of what is the road forward. Can this effectively put an end to the conversation about Aaron Rodgers' availability? I mean, you only hear it when things are going well. It would make no sense to put Aaron Rodgers behind this offensive line and ask him to do anything at this point of the year.
No, two things. No, you don't bring Aaron Rodgers back. And number two, they currently pick 11th in this draft.
Yep.
And you should probably target an offensive lineman to try to build around Aaron Rodgers next year.
Ryan, we appreciate you as always. And right now, we're going to take you out to Buffalo. Following one look at your box score, 32-6 is the final. Zach Wilson's final line. 7 of 15, 81 yards, and a touchdown. And when I say final line, well, it might be his final line. All right, we need a line from our guy, CBS Sports lead analyst Tony Romo, offering his thoughts on the tail end of this one. Tony, we hope you packed dinner because it took us a while to get here. We are always happy to see you. Let's start on the winning side. Buffalo, nothing but conversation and even some change over this past week. Was this the type of win and the performance on the way to the win that can quell those conversations and make you move forward feeling a bit better about yourself?
A little bit, like, as far as there needed to be something that needed to change in Buffalo. Like, when I say that, you don't necessarily think it's going to be the coordinator, but there had to be something to show the team, like, hey, we're going to do, it's not going to be the same thing that keeps happening over and over again. And it felt like, I mean, they were 5-5, but the metrics show you how good they are in a lot of areas. And it was almost like they needed an identity change, and I think that's what Sean McDermott was trying to do. And I know that he was stewing over this one. It's never an easy decision because Ken Dorsey had a lot of good stuff. It's like you look at the data, the metrics, it's like not many coordinators ever get let go when they have like number 1 or 2 in key areas. But I think they just wanted to get back to protecting the football and figuring out a way to call the game for that, and then running the football more because they have the team to do that. That makes them very dangerous. And no one blows this team out, but they blow out a lot of other teams. And I can tell you right now, we're going to find out everything we need to know the next couple weeks with Buffalo, as they have Murderers Row coming up here in their schedule.
Yeah, it is quite the gauntlet, that change in this Joe Brady play calling. Nets 32 points, which is not something they could say for themselves here in the recent past. Let's explore the other side. I mean, we're talking about Zach Wilson, dropped to throw 23 times, 0 completions to wide receivers in this game. Their limitations, and his specifically, are well outlined. But you can't pitch the rest of the season. What do you do moving forward at that position, and what can you accomplish if you're this group?
This is a very difficult decision. I've thought about it this whole week, and the one area that people don't talk about enough is just the offensive line. And when I say that, it's hard to play in the NFL if your offensive line is as poor as theirs is, especially their right side. They've had 11 different combinations, like 5 different combinations of guys with 60 snaps, which, I mean, that's insane. So no communication up front. They don't know how to play together, but then they're also getting backups in. So any quarterback would have one of his worst seasons in that, if you're a great one. Now you throw in a younger quarterback who's trying to get his legs under him to learn the game, and he's under extreme pressure, scrutiny, you know, game in, game out. I mean, this is a tall task, and the same thing with Coach Hackett. It's like there is no quick fix. There's no easy answer. The big thing is they have to protect the football, and they have to rely on their defense and special teams, but they've got to figure out something new, like Buffalo did. And I'm not saying fire anybody, but they've got to change the data. So you get these reports going into the game that say they run it on first down 68% of the time, 42% of the time, whatever it is, and just flip the script on all that stuff. Change the data on everything and go into a game and saying, we're doing this, because right now, there is no light at the end of the tunnel there, and I think that's regardless of which quarterback plays.
Yeah, the job of a quarterback, often a thankless task, but Tony Romo, we always thank you. Safe travels, my friend.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate you guys.
All right, taking a look at some numbers, and they're not good. Most consecutive games with 14 points or fewer. The Jets, they're stuck in a slog right now, and as you just heard Tony Romo say, no immediate answer at quarterback or in other places. You sit, you wait, and you hope 8's ready to go next season.